John Wall officially announced his retirement from the NBA today. The Washington Wizards legend, there's a strong argument to be made that he's one of the most influential athletes in Washington, D.C. sports history. We'll tell you exactly why on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, this is Locked On Wizards, where you're part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. I'm one of your co-hosts here, Ben Strober. I cover all things DC sports for 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980. You can check me out on Twitter or Instagram at Strober Sports. That's Abdullah Ubi. Check him out at DC Sports Content Creating Savant. He's the host of the DMV Sports Zone page. AB, how you feeling today, man?
It's a sad day. John Wall is no longer an active NBA player. I know he wasn't on the team, but what he meant to this city, I can't wait to break it down. But may he enjoy retirement. John Wall was a DC legend.
Well said, my friend. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. A little bit of a different style of episode today because typically we don't talk about historical topics on this channel. We're usually looking into the future, what we have building here in Washington. But one of the building blocks that was drafted back in 2010, the number one overall pick, John Wall, the man who transcended the way people feel about basketball in the D.C. area. He officially retired today. He announced it himself. Glad to finally see him reach the point of retirement where he can really sit back and enjoy and reflect on the incredible career he had. We're going to talk about his legacy that he left in a Wizards uniform, but not just as a player, but a member of the D.C. community, why he is one of the most influential members or influential athletes in D.C. sports history. How should the Wizards honor him? We'll talk about that in the next segment. And then the third segment, we'll just keep things on the basketball topic of the Wizards. Are we sleeping on Justin Champagnie? I feel like we haven't shown enough attention to him on this channel as of recently. But AB, one thing that's for certain about this, that if you're a Wizards fan, that's around our age. You and I are both the same age. I just turned 22. I believe you'd probably turn 22 a little bit before me, if I'm not mistaken. This news hits real close to home because you and I became Wizards fans because of John Wall, a guy that ultimately just took the city and put it in the palm of his hands. He had everything going for him at one point in his career. He was the guy that made you want to turn the game on, even through the first couple of years of his career where the team still wasn't any good. They went through still some pretty tumultuous years. They still had bad management for the most part when John was drafted in 2010. But boy, did things really change a couple years into his tenure. They finally made a playoff appearance in the 2013-2014 season, and things really took off from there. His legacy on and off the court is one that will be remembered forever by Wizards fans and by people around the NBA. You could see the reaction from members of the media that have covered the NBA for a long time, other NBA players that played in the same era here as John Wall, some of them that still play today, obviously, that didn't have some of the unluckiness that John Wall did in terms of injury, showing him love today, talking about how great they thought he was. It's just really interesting to see the reaction that we've got around the whole world of sports with this news today, AB.
Yeah, I was at work when I saw the notification, and in a way, my heart kind of dropped. It was like, man, John Wall really is officially done playing basketball. I was joking about the fact maybe bring him back to DC. We saw Dame go back to Portland. Oh, why don't we do it? But it's something because, again, like you mentioned, this is a guy that I started watching basketball because of him. The 360 layups, the no-look passes to Marcin Gortat. Him and Bradley Beal were like a best friend duo at one point. Remember that post-game interview against the Suns? It was just so many iconic moments. The Dougie as a rookie. I mean, it's just like John Wall. He was a guy that brought the community together. I don't know if you remember, Ben. I think it was in 2014 when the girl, 6-year-old girl Maya, passed away. I think she had leukemia, and he was crying in the post-game interview with Chris Miller. I mean, when Chris Miller was a sideline reporter, and that was pretty emotional, and went out there and win a double overtime game against, I think it was the Boston Celtics. It was just moments like that where the city was behind them. Verizon Center at the time was just electric. It felt like, man, we have a really good, I don't want to say superstar, but borderline superstar because of what he did off the court and on the court. And it's crazy. If you're a Wizards fan right now and think that this guy like is overrated in some sense, or do you think a lot of Wizards fans like us at this age think that we're overhyping him? You just don't understand what this man went through when he was a rookie. Those, like you mentioned, those years where this team was just not good at all, was an embarrassment off and on the court. And he was here during the bad days, but when the good days came along, I remember that Bulls series when Jimmy Butler and they went at it. Paul Pierce and the Raptors, you sweep them 4-0. And every time the Wizards played the Cavs, it was competitive. It was just John Wall will forever have a place in my heart. And the number 2, I know we're going to talk about it. In my opinion, and I know a lot of people are not going to, maybe not a lot of people agree with it, but I think it deserves to be retired. I understand nowadays the Hall of Fame, it's too oversaturated with mid players. I don't think John Wall is a mid player. If you contribute everything from what he did on the court and off the court, and what he meant to DC, I think he wanted to retire a Wizard, but that the management just handled it their certain way. I still think the Wizards should have rebuilt after the draft, or that traded John Wall. I think they should have traded Brad, but I mean, that's a different topic for a different day. But going back to John, Ben, it just feels so surreal because this is a guy that was my favorite player, and the left-handed dunks, he was so ambidextrous. He was so good at dunking with his left hand. It was insane. The posterizers, I mean, he was just something to watch, and I can't stress it enough. This guy was literally my favorite player when I first started watching basketball.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts about how the Wizards should honor him, but we'll save that for the second segment here. What I wanted to really nail on the head of this first segment is that I don't think enough people give John credit for being one of the most influential athletes in Washington, D.C. sports history. And I know D.C. has an illustrious history of figures that are iconic that go back to the 1920s, the workhorse Walter Johnson. I mean, you could really go deep into the bag of just athletes in the D.C. area that meant a lot to the community and were ultimately championship-level players or just players that changed the way people look at the sport. I mean, if you want to go deeper into some of the talent that have been on some of the other teams here in D.C., I mean, think about Jerry Smith for the Washington Redskins. Guy pretty much revolutionized the tight end position. But in terms of the impact that John Wall had on the D.C. area, I think you could make the argument that him right up there with Alex Ovechkin, those two may be the most influential athletes in DC sports history because those dudes played in the same building and they just put butts in the seats. There weren't people going to Wizards games like that. There wasn't an energy around this team before John Wall was there. I know you had the Gilbert Arenas couple of years there where maybe there was a little bit of excitement, but didn't quite last. John Wall was a guy that got people into basketball in this town. He embraced the way this city embraced him. I think that meant a lot to him. There's a reason why his time in D.C. was so special to him because he could feel the love that he got from this fan base, from people around the NBA that admired what he was doing for the Washington, D.C. area. You know, the volunteer work he's done within the community, the relationships he built in this area. Just super, super powerful in terms of bringing people together, getting this Wizards community together. Because I think you'd make the argument that a lot of fans that exist today that are watching this video right now, unless you're a little bit older and you were way into the team before John Wall was even born, perhaps, you probably became a Wizards fan because of John Wall, because of those years and what they meant to you. And I know they're just so near and dear to our heart that I just think we got to give John Wall a lot of credit in terms of his legacy, not just as a Washington Wizard, but a DC sport athlete. You can put him up there for the Mount Rushmore of just influential figures. I know, what we've talked on this channel, you got to buy a lot of stock into players that win championships and all that stuff. But for this conversation aside, I'm not even going to discuss winning championships because Wall got this team closer to the Eastern Conference Final than it had ever been. Really in the time since it's been to the Eastern Conference Finals in 1979. They haven't even sniffed that kind of success, and they were a game short in 2017, a year where John Wall was on the All-NBA third team. And just from all of that, when you just look back on the career of John Wall. He's just a guy that's going to be remembered for everything he did for this community. There's a reason why it hit so hard when he was traded away from the organization, even though the writing was on the wall for it. Because I could remember vividly where I was when this happened and how exactly I felt. It was 2020. It was peak fall COVID or whatever. I had just started working a job at Jersey Mike's, and I was sitting in there working my Jersey Mike shift, and I got the notification saying that John Wall had been traded to the Houston Rockets and Russell Westbrook was coming to DC. I was like, what the hell is going on? I have no idea how to process this information, but this doesn't make any sense to me. This is the reason I'm even a Wizards fan right now, is because of John Wall, and now he's just gone. So that kind of taught me from a younger age, I guess I was 16, 17 at the time, that you can't get too emotionally invested in the players that you have on your team because they can be stripped from you at any moment. I know as a Washington Nationals fan, you got to expect that your star players that you come to love will probably leave at some point. But never expected that with John Wall, and they did pay him. They made him one of the highest paid players in the NBA, and just unfortunate luck with the injuries, and he had terrible management with him as well, so they were unable to build a legitimate championship team. They were always just a piece away, is really what the bottom line is. If they actually did go out there and get KD in 2016, man, that team probably wins an NBA championship. And I know it's like you don't really want to hear about that right now, but John Wall meant everything to the DC area. That's the main takeaway from here, is that his influence he had on just people who were sports fans in the DC area cannot be undermined. One of the most influential to ever do it in my eyes.
Yeah, I was in. I know you mentioned you were working at Jersey Mike's. I was working at Target. I think it was on break when I saw that, and I was just like, man, like this really hits. He's no longer on my favorite team, and I know this is probably the most iconic moment, man. I mentioned a lot, but that Game 6 winner against the Celtics, him hitting it, and then getting on the scorer's table saying, "This is my city." I know what happened in Game 7. You don't have to remind us, but that was peak Wizards basketball, and I remember we were so accustomed to going to the playoffs every year, Ben, when it was John, Brad, Marchand, Otto Porter, and now it's like we can barely scratch the play-in. So it's crazy how fast time changes, and I really hope John, like, I think he still loves the city. Definitely. I mean, the Wizards organization itself, I don't know how he handled it, but I think eventually he'll come around, and hopefully I'll see him. I don't know if he's going to be a coach. Honestly, when you retire at that age, what do you do? But I don't think he's done yet. He's definitely going to do more stuff with his career, but him giving back, just you put all that in general, you a really good human being and someone who like good on the court and off the court, which is rare in today's sports world, like where you have an athlete who is a good role model and is also a borderline superstar. And I don't know, Ben. I think at one point when it was him, Kyrie, Steph, Dame, he was a top 3 point guard of the Eastern Conference. Him and Kyrie would go back and forth. That Christmas game, I mean, so many iconic moments from John. Quincy Acey throwing a I mean, bro, like you put all that together, you bring back the memories. It's just nostalgia. I can't stress it enough. John Wall was just a big part of our childhood.
100%. How should the Wizards honor him? I know you kind of alluded to this a little bit early on here, Abdullah, but I'll give you some of my thoughts on that. AB will do it as well, and you guys can let us know in the comment sections. Let us know your favorite John Wall memories. We'll touch on that when we come back. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes and see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and you can finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I never realized how many subscriptions I had, really, especially once I graduated college. Thankfully, when I got Monarch Money, I was able to cancel the ones that I wasn't using anymore, and I was able to save that much more. Monarch Money made it simple for me to review my finances with my partner, and now we can see both budgets, goals, and all the spending activity that occurs in one place. It really makes the world of difference. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. How should the Wizards honor John Wall? So I think this is going to be a subject that comes up probably in the future at some point now that Wall is officially retired. He announced today a nice video tribute that he posted on his social media today. So if you didn't check that out, you should go look at it. Really interesting stuff. We're going to touch a little bit on Justin Champagnie in the third segment, but for now, AB, I guess we'll just start with you. How should the Wizards honor him?
You hang number 2 up the rafters. I know you're going to call me delusional. I know the guy didn't do much. He didn't win a championship, but I always compare it to the standards that the Wizards hold. And I understand you want guys who can bring chips to Washington. We're winning, and how the situation ended here with Wall and DC, it is what it is. You got that money, you got hurt, things happened. His team, just a lot of things went down, and there's only so much you can blame on him. But I think you retire the jersey, man. You can't see another number 2 on this team. And Bradley Beal at one point averaging 30 points per game, lost the scoring title to Steph Curry not too long ago. He really good, entertaining to watch. But John Wall had this team together, and when those two guys were playing together, I mean, there was a fun backcourt. To me, it was him, Brad, and then there was Clay and Steph and CJ, Dame. They were a top 5 backcourt in this league, and the chemistry was there. But going back to John, I think you have to hang up with the rafters, Ben. I just don't know who the next Wizard would be. I mean, hopefully Trey Johnson, because we're really high on him. But I think John did enough, and I know there's a lot of people are gonna be mixed on this, but I just can't see a number 2, Ben. What about you?
I don't know if anyone's going to wear number 2 ever again. I just feel like it's a situation where it's kind of like unwrittenly retired in Wizards history. I mean, there's only 5 players that have jerseys retired in the Washington Wizards organization, and I believe 4 of them, I'd have to go through the list again, were guys on that 1978 NBA championship team. Now, I do totally agree with the point you make that the Wizards maybe have a different standard when it comes to how they honor players. And not to say that John Wall doesn't deserve to be honored, because I think he deserves to be honored within a super high regard in some sense whenever that time does come. I don't know if it's going to be some sort of Ring of Fame thing, have a complete ceremony for him. But he does need some sort of immortalization within this organization because, as I mentioned, one of the most impactful athletes in the DC sports area, really in the last 25 years, maybe ever. And just as an all-time Wizard, he's top tier. He's one of the best Wizards to ever play. And I know we'll have a lot of people that will talk about the years of guys that played before him, Unseld, Elvin Hayes, Monroe, some of the other guys that made this Wizards organization special many, many years ago. But you have to include John Wall as one of the best players ever in this organization's history. So there is going to be some substantial way that they do honor him, part of this franchise. And I know that Wall meant a lot, especially to the owner, Ted Leonsis. I think that's not going to go over his head, even though things didn't end necessarily the best because of the contract and the injuries that Wall had, and eventually he's traded away. But I don't see that being a situation where there's going to be bad blood and they're not going to honor him the way that he should be. I think it'll be a top priority for this Wizards franchise, especially in a year where you're not going to be winning a lot of basketball games, where it might be tough to get people to come out to Capital One Arena. Maybe having some sort of ceremony for John Wall of some sort is going to be the thing to maybe move the needle. Interesting to note, AB, so John Wall is going to join Amazon Prime as an analyst, which I'm really stoked about because
wow,
I saw, yeah, just saw that actually really recently. When I saw him do some TV hits recently, I can't remember where, if it was NBA TV, ESPN, or whatever it was, he seemed really good as an analyst. And I always saw him as a guy that was pretty well-spoken, said the right things when he was interviewed. He was very media-friendly. So I could envision him having a really successful career in the media, and it seems like he might be on his way to doing so. So you love to see that, because I know when John got injured, the thing that was super tough for him and the reason why he went through so many mental health struggles, he felt like he had lost his purpose when he was unable to be on the basketball court, go out there and be part of a team, be part of a culture, trying to win basketball games. And I know that ultimately led him to admitting on a podcast that he had contemplated suicide, which is an unbelievably sad thing to hear about, one of our favorite athletes ever. I know obviously he's doing a lot better right now, especially on the surface, but I'm super happy that he's staying involved within the game of basketball, because it really is his entire life. He has built his entire foundation, all the relationships and everything that is deemed success in John Wall's life is because of the game of basketball, so he absolutely deserves and still should be a part of it in some way, and I'm glad that he's getting an opportunity.
Yeah, a lot of people don't talk about that. A lot of people want to trash on John Wall and him getting hurt after getting that much money, but mentally, I mean, he was going through it. There was a lot of things happening, and I'm happy he admitted on that podcast because it takes a lot, especially for us guys today, Ben. Like, it's hard to admit that, when you're not in the best place, it's like, oh, I don't want to sound vulnerable. But at the end of the day, it's completely fine. So shout out to John Wall, and I definitely think he's going to do great things as an analyst. I didn't know that, but I'm excited to watch now. Whenever he's going to be reporting, I'll definitely be watching. But I was going to ask you, Ben, is there a certain rule of thumb of once that player retires, how long you have to wait for the team to say, okay, I want to retire your jersey now, or you can just do it ASAP?
I've got no idea. If somebody has an answer to that, I don't know if that such thing exists. No idea. It's a good question, though. But something we can ponder here as we move forward. And as we move forward and roll throughout the show to our final segment, show a little love here to Justin Champagnie, a guy that got elevated off the two-way contract last year and really was one of the more efficient players overall on this Wizards team. What does his future look like here in DC? Let's talk about it. AB, Justin Champagnie is a guy I feel like kind of came out of nowhere at one point. I was like, this dude is new to the roster. He's just dropping buckets left and right, and they're playing a lot better with him on the floor. And I was kind of like, where did this guy come from? Then he gets elevated off the two-way contract last year and just puts up pretty staggering stats in terms of efficiency when he was on the floor. And he's a guy, he's still only 24 years old. So he fits into that young group of player category that most of the players on this Wizards team fits in. Now, what does his role look like long term? That's kind of the question we're trying to ponder here because, once again, he's a player that comes off the wing. We know how crowded the wing room is here for the Washington Wizards. But, AB, just from what you saw out of him last year, do you think he can stick around here long term?
Definitely. You fits the timeline. You mentioned 24 years old, not too old, and he coming from the Capital City Go-Go. A big reason why I love our Capital City Go-Go. They have the track record of developing players. Isaiah Todd, Jordan Goodwin, and I think Justin Champagnie is another prime example. JC, there's a game last year where I think he had 30 points, and he was playing defense. This is one thing that I loved about him. Defensively, we weren't that good, but seeing flashes of him, getting steals, hands in the passing lane, his athleticism, him being able to shoot it from three. It's going to be interesting to see how many minutes he gets this year, Ben, because you have Cam Whitmore you just traded for, Bilal Coulibaly, that year 3 offensive jump that we're hoping to see. Corey Kispert somehow is still on this roster. I don't know how, as of a recording. And, I mean, there's just only – Will Riley, a guy you drafted in the first round, there's only so much minutes you can give to these wings because at one point we were talking about not too long ago that there wasn't enough talent, but now there's a surplus of it. So how does Justin Champagnie find his role here? I'm still hoping he gets a good amount of minutes because I think he deserves it. Again, that friendly contract that you got him on too, I think was it 2 years, $10 million, one from Capital City Go-Go, that he willingly deserved it. And I'm excited to see how he does year 3 of this rebuild. I hope he's a part of this team when they start competing because I think he's a really good player.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you notice how crowded this group is, especially with guys that are on the two-way contracts, like Vucevic and Jameer Watkins. Wizards actually did sign 2 players today that will probably be Capital City Go-Go bound. We can touch on that in the episode tomorrow. It's not super urgent that we bring those guys into the equation here today. But for Justin Champagnie, something that stuck out to me doing my research of him, in the last 60 games that he played, per 75 possessions, he averaged just under 15 points per game, snagged over 9 rebounds with a 63% field goal percentage, or 63% from the 2-point range, and then 39% from 3. Well, he added a steal and a half and a block as well. So the numbers are there efficiency-wise. He's a guy that got elevated off that two-way contract because every time he was on the floor of the NBA roster, the dude was out there giving buckets, giving his effort defensively, and ultimately helping this team actually compete and get close to winning some games throughout the season. It's kind of remarkable how he is a really nice success story, actually, because as you mentioned, he's a guy that went through a couple of other systems. I think he was with the Heat's G League system at one point. The Wizards were able to pick him up and develop him even more with a go-go, because he was giving buckets in the G League for quite some time, really back to 2023. He was out there dominating in the G League, and he gets the opportunity here in Washington, and he's able to make the most of it and really carve out a role for himself. I don't know what it's going to look like going forward here, but he's certainly intriguing, and I feel like he goes maybe over the head of a lot of Wizards fans right now just because how much talent is developing at the wing right now.
Those are my favorite stories, man. As much as I love the Trey Johnsons of the world, the Alex Sars, guys like Justin Champagnie are a big reason why the NBA is the NBA in today's world, rooting for the underdog. And is there a possibility where you pair him? Maybe he gets that trade value up this season, you trade him to get a draft capital. We've seen Will Dawkins. He sees there's so much talent on this roster that maybe there's just not enough space for Justin Champagnie. For me, I think when it comes to the wing, the guy like that's literally out the door is Corey Kispert. I think the next guy, I think it's a pretty decent gap between him and Justin Champagnie. But I'm hoping Justin Champagnie, I think, when, like you mentioned, when he's given those minutes, he produces. And again, Cam Whitmore, there's just so much untapped potential. And Will Dawkins only giving up 2 second-round picks. It's going to be something to watch. And I'm rooting for JC. It's cool that I think his brother is still on the Spurs, so it's also interesting that he has a twin that looks exactly like him. But shout out to JC. I think he's a guy that if you watch when I first started hosting Locked On Wizards or even was a guest, I love Justin Champagnie as a guy that I love talking about. So always got to show JC some love.
Absolutely. Let us know what you guys think about the future of Justin Champagnie. That'll do it for us here on Locked On Wizards today. A kind of different episode because of John Wall's retirement, talking about the legacy that he leaves, not just as a basketball player, but as a person. One of the most influential to do it in the D.C. area. How will the Wizards honor him? That'll be an interesting storyline to follow as we continue on through 2025. Getting closer and closer to camp and the season starting in October. That's going to be exciting stuff for Abdullah and I. So with that being said, we want to thank everyone for making Locked On Wizards your first listen today. For your second, check out the Locked On NBA podcast where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on everything you need to know to be the most informed NBA fan. Check it out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. That's Abdullah Yubi. Check him out. Host of the DMV Sports Zone page on Instagram. I'm Ben Strober. You can check me out on my social, Strober Sports, for both Instagram and Twitter. Wizards Nation, we're out.